Okay, my friends, this is about Machu Picchu, and this, I don't want to be against anybody. I just want to show that there is a whole nother side to this that they have missed, and they're never going to get it until they pay attention to what I am about to show. Now, here is Fernando Estete, site director at Machu Picchu, trying to explain what they see. And what they see is biology. And it was cut from wet stone at a certain point in time. Let me show you that first, and then we're going to go back to Fernando and see what he has to say. All right, these are obviously, this was wet at one time. They were obviously cutting slabs off of here with some obvious tracked vehicle that had obvious tank-looking treads in it, designed to work in this obviously soft, whatever it was, environment. And I say that is a tendon, and here's why I say it. This is tendinous material. It's CaCO3. You can see there's spots of blood here and there. I've looked at these very carefully. They cut these slabs and moved them back to make these walls. That's why they fit perfectly. And they just cut them as they could cut them. And they put them in wherever they put them in. Not a single one of them is the same size. This is what they look like when they're alive. They're tendinous. They're very strappy, fibrous, very little blood in them, very, very strong CaCO3 calcium carbonates and a few extra little minerals here and there. But you will see synovial sheath. Well, I have one here that's completely turned into like, they call this selenite, but it's the same as this. Only it was in a real salty, acidy, something condition that leached out all of the organics and left the clear substance left. It was really exactly like that. It was exactly like that at one time. All right. And then they also have these exact same, well, I'll show it to you. See these little colored things in here? These are minerals. Now, this is an abrupt transition. And if you saw this in a microscope, you would see, if I can hold it in the light, you can see like a sheen to this here and there. That is the synovial sheath, which lets these things slide back and forth. Because every fiber in there, and there is literally hundreds of thousands, I'm sure, they slide against each other, and they have to move in exact, almost complete frictionless. Synovial sheath is 4 times slippier than Teflon on Teflon. So these things, you know, the chemistry's here, the anatomy's here, the tire tracks are there. It's not a big mystery to me. All right, this is one of these tendon mats. And that's a tendon mat, and these fibrils run down to a ball. You see that ball? There's a hole in this fabric, and the strap goes through that. Now, the tendon can pull back and forth, and the strap stays anchored to the hole it is locked into here. This ball is an injury. That's supposed to be stuck in there. And that is what keeps it so that the tendon can go back and forth, but it will always return. These are the balls that I'm talking about that I was finding everywhere. And I see everywhere in these, you know, ancient aliens and so forth, they're showing these, and, oh, what could these balls possibly be? And, you know, and I realize these are the same balls that I'm seeing, only I'm seeing them microscopically and, you know, kind of big in my mud fossils. I mean, they're all over this thing, and they're all over. I had some that were so perfect. They were about this big around. It showed the strap going through the holes, the whole strap. Gave it to an archaeologist, threw it away. But anyway, I could show you these everywhere, and these are the same straps that they cut and made walls with, and they left these little bumps sticking out. And everybody says, "Oh, what are those bumps?" Well, I'll show you what the bumps are. Here's what they are right there. You see that? You can see that that was a fluid-filled strap. That little thing right there. That was a fluid-filled strap. There's another one, there's another one. They ran down. Those were the things that ran over, actually probably this way. And the balls were attached down here. They just broke the straps off, and they cut these pieces. Now, this looks like a test wall to try to figure out how the best way to work with these tendon mats is. Because that is natural. Those little designs there, those are actual patterns of the fibers that are in the tendons that give them that strength. And these are those straps. And they ran over here to a ball, and the ball would have, obviously they've wedged these pieces together. And I think they must have been testing something here to see what the best way to use them as far as weathering goes. It looks like it to me. But you can see the hole right there. And if you could get up close to look at that, you can see it's red. That's the strap, and they were the fluid-filled straps that ran to those balls. The balls were the anchors. The straps let the mats go back and forth as tendinous, strappy material. Now we saw they were cutting them off of those chunks of tendon, and then they'd bring them down here and put them in wherever they would fit and just slug them against and push them and so forth. Now this one came from a part that to me looks like it had a bone still left inside. It's this piece right here. Usually they use the tendon, but this wall they use some scraps. There's one up here real scrappy. This one here, you see that and you see the blood and everything, right? You can see it all. It's right there. Now then you get into this material here, which is the calcium carbonates, and normally they make them out of these better materials, but this area here they did a really, they look at that thing. They're still here thousands of years later, or whatever, hundreds of years later, however long this happened to go. But some places are so beautifully flawless that you just think that nobody can explain how they did it. You can't put a piece of paper between these. They were wet when they put them there, that's why. All right, remember I told you they have these fibrous things in between where the muscle and the tendon starts to join. They're called abrupt transitions. Well, that's the stuff. That's the exact same stuff we see there. This was a tendon. And it was in some kind of chemistry that leached all of the aqueous movable organics out of it. These are tough. These are the things that give you the rigidity and the structural integrity. All right, here's another area where they're using the same vehicle. And here's those spots again, that same stuff is in the abrupt transition, and they're cutting the slabs the same way. All right, basically how this started with Gil Hedley and so forth was I found these gigantic human body parts and so forth, and I checked them out very, very well for several years, and finally I decided, before this was like in 2015, I had them DNA certified and CAT scanned and all that stuff. But for a couple of years before that, I was studying them, and I was working with Gil Hedley, and I'm going to go into that in a minute. But this is the reasons I can say that these, what I did was I saw in the microscope, I could see all these little black balls all over, little tiny black balls. And then when I saw all over the world these gigantic black balls on the same kind of straps, I'm thinking, what the hell is going on? And then I realized the Earth is just covered with these gigantic creatures. And now we're studying it deeper and deeper, and that's what it is. The whole world, as far as I'm concerned at this point, was literally built from creatures, as far as I could determine. Okay, just so you understand, Gil Hedley is probably, as far as I'm concerned, the top anatomist in the world. And this goes back to 2012. When I first started working with him. He was the only one that would work with me, and he was talking about the fuzz. Well, what is fuzz? Fuzz is what they used to refer to as was a fascia. Fascia, they used to call, that's just a fuzz, just cut it and get it out of the way and throw it away. And literally they did. And it was all kinds of tissue that was related to these tendon balls and the anchors of your body that they couldn't see because they're just too tiny. But this goes back to 2012, International Fascia Congress. He gave a presentation, very, very good. And the guy is hilarious. He's funny. He's a nice guy, very intelligent, and worked with me until, well, this was started like 2012 or so, somewhere around there. And then 2015, the medical industry finally recognized the fuzz was the tendon balls, and they ended up calling it interstitium. All right, this is the new body organ discovered by scientists. Interstitium, new organ discovered in the human body after it was previously missed by scientists. Now, this is just very, very recent that they're showing the data of this, but this happened, I believe, in 2015. They admitted that they finally discovered it. Well, they realized that they should be talking about it because Gil Hedley and I discovered it. Now, I discovered it in the Mudfossils, and when I talked to him, I said, you know, we talked about these straps and these balls because they're all over the world, and I mean they are huge in the Mudfossils I deal with. That's why, and I'm going to show them to you. So, and Gil worked with me, and we realized they were these fluid-filled fibers that ended up with these balls that are called interstitium. See, the layers long thought to be dense connective tissue, just regular, that strappy, nasty connective tissue like this stuff that's in there. You see that? That's a rock too, but that's connective tissue. All right, and that's the stuff you cut in a steak and you have a hard time getting through it if you're not a vegan. Now, they're looking at this about the spread of cancer because it additionally is not only is it the connective tissue and the anchors, but in my world it is also a signaling nerve device that works back and forth through the vagus nerve. Now that's a whole other issue, but these are fluid-filled compartments. They call it now the interstitium. Brand new name, just back in 2015. Now, what do I got here? All right, well, here it is. Okay, here's the interstitium. Now, it's a contiguous, everywhere in your body, fluid-filled space existing between a structural barrier such as a cell wall or the skin and the internal structures such as organs, including muscles and a circulatory system. It's on every organ. Hold on. This is a DNA-certified human lung. Ancient. Solid rock now. But that is the pleura. That is the interstitium. Pleura, interstitium, skin, all of the coating of the bones, it's all the same stuff. They're calling it interstitium. All the organs are coated with it. That's what keeps everything separate from everything else. Otherwise, you'd just be a big ball of gush. Now, this fluid, it's called the interstitial fluid now, and it's a slimy fluid that's in between them. And that also houses the intermembrane bacteria. And that bacteria is what protects that structure that's under this membrane. The bacteria secretes all kinds of different chemistry that reacts to invasion. And we're having this problem right now is people that have a compromised immune system. That means that their membranes, it's called membrane-bound bacteria. Their membranes have already been, the bacteria has been killed off by antibiotics or some MMR vaccine or glyphosate or something in the environment or in the, you're missing something in there as far as bacteria goes. So you get attacked by bacteria, there's nobody to fight back. Then you get sick. That's why these people are dying. And it's in the interstitium. This is the most important thing in your whole body right now. Bacteria, slime, and grizzle. That's the most important thing in your whole life is slime and grizzle. I can't help myself, my friends. This gets hilarious when I see how much is so missed. Now, Tyson is working a fabulous, fabulous site out there on the West Coast. Now, and I'm praying for him. He's got a hold of me last night. He said, we got a fire going on. I haven't heard from him since. And, brother, I hope you're all right, man. I know there's problems out there, and that's related to the weather. There's so much is not understood. And anyway, I hope you're all right, brother. All right, now, and we've been looking into collagen. And the collagens that are being attacked by this COVID are these 1s, 3s, and 5s, which are the elastins and the flexible collagens in the heart and in the, right here, heart, myochondrial interstitium of the heart. There it is right there. The renal interstitium in your kidneys, your organs, your blood vessels. These are all the same sort of structural rubbery material, and it's being attacked by some bacteria coming in and eating it or killing it, somehow affecting it so that it loses its rubberiness, and then they die. All right, I'm going to show you in a minute. I have made mud fossils. I'm going to show you that in a second. Now, I have something that's called electron flood theory, where everything is made of electrons, and electrons invade things to stabilize them. And if it's in the right chemistry, salty or acidic, and it's the right flesh or tissue or tendon or whatnot, it will stabilize in a variety of ways, and a huge variety of ways. Sometimes they'll look just like rocks and mud, sometimes they'll look like glass, sometimes they'll look reddish, sometimes they'll look white and clear. Anyway, the biology stabilizes in wet, platy polar silicates, which is atomic invasion. Right? Polar means they have a polarity, they have a positive and negative, and they invade. Over the course of time, in the correct pHs, organic material will always, 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 always transfer molecules every so often, literally within every so many seconds, or they die. The tissue dies. Or oxygen, nutrition, blood flow, all of those things have to be continuously worked. You have to feed it, and then you have to take out the trash. Both things have to happen in every bit of your cells, and every bit of you is made of cells, and those cells have to be taken care of. So, when you die, that stops happening. There's no more transfer of, the blood flow by and saying, give me this, I'll give you that, here's some oxygen, give me the carbon dioxide, da, 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 da. Well, that stops. So, what happens then? The molecules stop exchanging. No more exchanges of gases and this and that. So they seek stability. They say, who can come and hold me tight, and we'll just stay here together, and we'll not worry about transferring gases anymore. It's called bonding. So the things that are in the fluids that are passing by, because I say this all happened in the flood, and in this flood I believe the pH of certain areas would be different than other areas. Some, you're going to be near the kidney in one area, you're going to have a lot of uric acids. In another area, you're going to be near the heart, you're going to have a lot of ferrous oxides, a lot of blood. It's all different. Your gallbladder, your spleen, all those different things have different chemistry. And that's what they do in your body, too. That's why they're there. They're reacting with the chemistry that they are designed to use to pump into the blood system, into your body, to fight things off, to break things down, to digest, to ingest, to, be your protective, your immune system, all of that stuff. Now, and of course, obviously, for the construction of your body, you need certain things for your eyeballs versus your toenails, a little bit of a different substance. Now, so what do you have? You have fluid with lots of minerals in it. You have pH levels that can be salty or acidic. You have heat in different areas. Some places are hotter than others. And all of those things dictate the final end result. All right, some of them will be, like I said, glassy, and some of them will be muddy. Now, the long soaking yields perfectly preserved body parts. Usually they're organs and fingers, and they're things that separate along the lines of fascia. Like this is a giant human fingertip. It's been DNA certified, CAT scan, anatomist, microscopy, the whole 9 yards. And like I say, I've created my own mud fossils, not like this, that sophisticated, but I will show you what I've done. And it only doesn't take even a year to do it. Now, so in these conditions of salts or acids, and also a little bit of electrical current, because everything is electrical current. It's called telluric currents. They soak into the earth, literally. And so I put them through the solutions in a very small potential, small voltage. I forget what I used for voltage, but I pushed it through there, and in less than a year I had mud fossils that were almost solid. If I let them dry out, which I did, and they solidified pretty good. Now, but it of course takes another 2 years or so before they hardened up pretty hard. Now, blood preserves very well. Blood is a very, very good preserver in mud fossils. And because it has a lot of transition metals in it, which collect in your organs and then restrictions in the arteries and the veins and so forth, that blood. No, the blood has the transition metals. The transition metals are the invasive molecules that normally they're called ligands. They create these complexes, transition metal complexes. They're very, very sophisticated molecules, and at the end they pinch on to all these other things. They go through your body and they drop things off. They pick things up. That's what they do. They drop off and pick up things. Now, when you die, they stop moving, but they still have these very reactive chemistry in there. Transition metals. Transition. That means they can add or they can take away. So they find a partner. They lock in. That's why you get all the colors. The colors are because of transition metals. You see these? I don't know if you can see, but do you see all those little colors in there? That's a lung. But all of those little colors are from different transition metals. And you have a ton of transition metals in blood, and you have a ton of blood in your lungs. Same thing there. I think that was a lung. This is at a certain area this was a toe. And the bone is still in there. I've shown this a zillion times. And that's where blood leaked out at the very tip. They always have a arterial spot at the very, very end of all your fingers and toes. And that is where the blood usually squirts out of. All right, now. I don't know what else I can say. I understand this quite well now. The blood preserves very well because of the transition molecules. Mud and still water, running water, temperature, different minerals, pH up, pH low, telluric currents, voltages, salt versus fresh water, how long they soaked, how big they were when they started, what kind of a creature it was. All of that stuff plays into effect. Now, let me show you my mud fossils that I actually created here in my shop. Okay, this was from my tests that I did back in 2015, which I took chicken tissue, which this is, and I put it in platypolar silicates, which is muddy, sandy soils, which are a little bit of salt, 7.4-ish area, and some electric current through there, DC electric current, to simulate telluric currents, which is what we have right now. The Earth creates telluric currents. They flow through the stuff that's in the Earth to create our magnetic fields. All right? It flows through the core of the Earth and creating all these magnetic fields. And that's the telluric current. So we know we're creating a similar environment, and within less than a year this happens. And what happens is the tissue has different molecular variations in it, depending upon what type of tissue it is, where it is on the body, and so forth. Now, and where it bumps up to, what kind of minerals and so forth it's bumped up against. What happens is you create seed crystals. Now, this is blood. That's vein blood. Then other red areas will be arterial blood. Other areas will be skin tissue and membranes and muscle and all of that stuff, tendons. Now, they will have their own molecular signature. And that molecular signature will want to avoid other molecules, or it will want to bond with other molecules. If it wants to bond with it, it means it wants to stabilize with that molecule, because it's no longer alive and organic and transferring gases and nutritions back and forth all the time. It's now dead. It doesn't move anymore. So it wants to find somebody to stabilize with. It finds a partner that is similar to itself, and then it begins to grow in that structure, and then they become bigger and bigger. It didn't start like that on a piece of chicken tissue. That grew. And so did these, and so did that, and so did that, and so did these. And some of them will grow brown, and some of them will grow white, and some of them will be black, and some of them will be red, and they'll be all different colors depending upon what transition metals they happen to be bonding with. Now let's see if I have any other shots. Well, this is another area. Hold on. When it was soaking wet and it had started to stabilize a little harder. There's that shot again there. Anyway, this is what happens to tissue as it stabilizes in the mud fossil way, which was the way of the Earth during a gigantic flood. If there was a gigantic flood on the face of the Earth, which appears to me there was, which killed gigantic creatures, which are obviously were here, because we have the evidence of that, no question about that. We need to take a new look at all the old texts. They were not silly. They weren't jokes. They were writing things that appear to have a very, very solid foundation. And that's how I'm looking at everything now. You can look at anything you want, in any way you want. But I find it fascinating to consider everything in every possible way that you could consider it. And I've considered everything. I've gone against God and Christ, and I've gone for God and Christ as the devil's advocate, or whatever you want to call it. You have to confront things and say, well, wait a minute, how could this be? Well, he said that, come on. Now, you don't have to say it in those ways. You could say, could you please explain that to me? How could a dragon be 1,000 miles long? I mean, I'd like to know why, and if what was written about that. And then now that I've started to look, I could see it. I know what was written about it, and it was all written about. Even on the maps of not that long ago, 1350 or something was the map, showed the dragon in the desert, and Atlantis and everything else. So they knew things that we have just dismissed. And I don't dismiss anymore. Now, I'm going to leave it with this last thought. I am too old to do this anymore. And I have still got a lot of pushback that is making it very difficult for me to continue to present this in a real strong way. So I need somebody to step up and take over, literally take over this whole thing, and to present it as a school and do it in a correct way. I don't care whether it's a TV station. I'm learning more from TV now than anybody that I've ever learned anything from. I'll tell you, it's discovery and history and all these different channels that are investigating the things that were done before and doing it in the right way. And they're doing it with new equipment and technology and sonar and this and that and chemistry and drones, and they're going on site. None of that's being done by the colleges that are the ones that say we're the experts. They're not the experts anymore. They never really were, but they could just pass along the things that they read. If they read enough, they say, oh, no, I read this guy, and I read that guy, and I read 6 of this guy's books and 10 of that guy's books, and I know all this stuff. Well, all you're reading is somebody else's opinions. Now, if they don't start to pay attention to this, that is what you're going to get. I would get your education off of TV or Mudfossil University on a YouTube. And I will be opening up my website very soon, back again. And at that point, I want people to come forward, experts in their realm, to open up classrooms. Somebody's got to do this. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to be the administrator. I'm not going to be the guy that does the day-to-day. I'm not going to be involved in any of that, and I don't want any money or any of that stuff at all, whatsoever, ever. All I want to do is watch this unfold. So somebody's got to step up. All right, and somebody's got to step up that has administrative skills, basically, is all you need. Somebody to be able to, you know, supervise the whole thing and make it work as like a manager of the whole thing. You know, not to make any decisions about specific research conclusions or any of that stuff. No, that's not what I'm asking for. And that's what I'm not expecting. I'm expecting somebody to put forth a classroom and say, okay, on Tuesdays and Thursdays and whatever, we're going to have 2 hours of whatever it is. And this Tuesday we're going to discuss da-da-da. On Thursday we're going to discuss da-da-da-da. And whether you do it in a Zoom classroom or just text or whatnot, I don't know. Like I say, that's not my realm. This is my realm right here. This is what I'm going to be doing, is putting up little clips and videos about the things that people present. Because this is how I get all my research. I don't just come out every day and discover these things. People say, what do you think about this? Oh, what are you running your mouth about this? What do you think about that? Oh, how can you explain this? Well, that's what I love. I absolutely love this. When somebody presents me with something that they think that they can get over on me, I love it. You know, sometimes I have no explanation. I mean, I have no explanation. When somebody says to me, how did a dragon get to be 1,000 miles long and attack a fish 600 miles long? I don't know. I can show you it. Now it's up to you to make some interpretation about it. I really have no interpretation other than what was written in the ancient text, and it said, well, hold on. All right, don't forget, I was never, ever even the tiniest bit religious before I started to see the things I see. Here's Isaiah 27:1. In that day the Lord will punish Leviathan, the fleeing serpent, with his fierce and great and mighty sword, even Leviathan, the twisted serpent, and he will kill the dragon who lives in the sea. Now, and there is so much more, and it speaks very, very poorly of, well, now there will also false prophets among the people, just as there will be false teachers among you. They will secretly introduce destructive heresy that even denies the master who bought them, bringing swift destruction on themselves. Many will follow in their depravity. Because of them the way of truth will be defamed. And it goes on and again, and it's not good for the academics. I'm telling you right now, it's not good. I would start to think a little bit, my academic friends. By the way, 100% of all cultures wrote about these exceptionally interesting and quite often gigantic monsters of the sea and on the land, and dragons and all kinds of things. Okay, I'm just going to give you the mainstream. This was on the Science Channel, and this is the site director of Machu Picchu. And again, I'm not out to belittle anybody or anything like that. I just want to see reality.
Fernando Ascente is the site's director and has been studying Machu Picchu for 30 years.
No two stones are the same.
He knows every stone here and thinks the answer to why there's such strange shapes lies just above the city center, in a quarry.
Estamos en el sector conocido de las canteras a la época de los incas.
I'm just going to cut to the chase with this. He's claiming that they chiseled out these stones and then matched them, and they used hematite, which hematite is blood. Hematite is metal. A heme is blood. It's ferrous oxide blood that is turned into these black stones, and he says they use that to chip it away. Well, you saw what I say, so I see no reason to go through this, because this is just mainstream speaking about how they chiseled all these things and they were just little normal people. I showed that there was huge giants. I don't know if they were alive to do this. I showed there was equipment. I showed there was tracks in the soft stone. I showed how they were cut, how they fit together. I showed that there were tendons. I showed the tendon balls. I showed the mats. It's not a mystery anymore. It's just a refusal to engage with reality. All right. So please, someone get a hold of me. It's Roger, Roger, at Mudfossils with an S.com. I'd like to have somebody take this and run with it, like a TV station or something along that lines, because it needs to be presented. And I see that as the best presentation method anymore. I used to think schools were the way, but they're not. They're just that's an indoctrination system. There's no education going on there. These people talk about it. Now, if there was a way to re-engage with them like I'm doing now, and then we had like a classroom online that could present back and forth that evidence, and have some moderators that would listen in and sort of, work amongst themselves to decide, it's almost like the peer review, only, we'd bring everything out. We'd allow everything to be seen. If it has substantial evidence. Now, if they could say and show, which we'd allow this, that they chip it with hematite and we figured it all out. Well, that's good. Let's see what you got. No problem. But when you just come up with ideas like, no support whatsoever, that's a different story. We'll listen, but somewhere on the back page. When you come forward with evidence, like I have always presented evidence 100% of the time, and it's not allowed. That's not going to be allowed here. Here we will allow what has support. I don't care where it leads. Because I found stuff that leads me now to places I thought I would never, ever, 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 ever go. All right, I love you. God bless you.